Okay, we now welcome on a very, very, very special guest. It is Derek Jeter, the captain, Hall of Famer. He also has a new apparel brand called Greatness Wins, which I was looking at the site. Looks like great stuff. You're doing it with Wayne Gretzky. Is this your, like, I can just name a company whatever I want because I'm Derek Jeter moment? Because Greatness Wins,
No.
like, you can, like, if I had an apparel company be like, mediocrity, like, you probably will still look fat, but you have Greatness Wins.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. Look, I obviously throughout my career I'm wearing athletic apparel, right, for everything that I do. And I think one thing you realize is when you're an athlete, I mean, you have certain tools that help you perform. And playing baseball, obviously it's a baseball and a bat; those aren't going to change. But athletic apparel, you start thinking about what would you do differently. I've been blessed. I've had great relationships with a couple athletic brands throughout my career, and wanted to just focus on performance first. That's what's most important, and quality, fit, consistency, sustainability. But I do encourage everyone. Thanks for going on our site. I encourage everyone to go take a look, order something. Greatnesswins.com, and I'm very confident you're going to circle back and order some more. So it's something that I'm extremely proud of. I started having conversations with my partner probably about a year and a half ago, and a guy by the name of Chris Riccobono, who started Untuck It, and we had those conversations, and here we are. About a year and a half later, we launched our brand, and you talk about the name Greatness Wins. I think a lot of times people look at greatness and they think it's an ultimate goal. I look at it as a mindset, so I look at, having that mindset in anything that you want to achieve. So I appreciate you checking it out. You need to order some. I'll send some to you guys, and I expect to start seeing you wear it.
Yeah, I will.
Absolutely.
Who would you say has more greatness, you or Wayne Gretzky?
Ooh.
Oh, well, Wayne's the great one. I mean, I'm not
That's
even
true.
going to go down that path. I mean, he's the one.
Yeah. I
that
think
is true.
that's probably fair. We're going to get into, I'm sure, a lot of your career and your playing days, but I'd like to start off, if it's okay with you, with a personal gripe that I have with
Sure.
you.
You only have one. That's a good thing.
Well, I've got several, and we can get to the rest, but the biggest one by far, and I think a lot of our fans want to hear this asked to you and really hold your feet to the fire. Why did you take down the Miami statue in the outfield of the Marlins that would go up in circles every time they'd hit a home run?
We didn't take it down. We moved it.
Okay, why did you remove it? It seems like, we can choose to tear down statues all we want, but history's still there. I really wanted that to be left up. That was my favorite part of that ballpark.
It's still up. Do you get down there in Miami much?
We went down for the All-Star game a
Yeah.
couple years ago. I just wish it was still in center field so I'd see that big giant fish go up in the air every time someone hit a home run.
So yeah, no, it's still outside of the park, so you can go see it. They actually moved it because we needed the space. I think you talk about sports nowadays. Fans don't want to sit in their seats and talk to the person on their left and their right. They want to move around, have more social spaces. So we moved that because we needed the space in center field. We didn't tear it down. We moved it.
Yeah, if we're going to do gripes, I might as well get to my gripe as well. Do you think things would have gone differently if you had maybe worked a little more with Marlins Man and done Marlins Man Mondays that he proposed to you? He's a friend of ours, and I don't know. From his perspective, he dominated the negotiation with you because I think he offered you a blank check, or maybe you offered him one. I can't remember how it went, but do you think it would have gone a little different if you had maybe, hired him as like president of the team or something?
Differently might be a good way to put it. I don't know how you define differently, but it probably would have gone a little bit differently. I'm pretty sure, but I am positive I didn't offer him a blank check.
Yeah.
Either. If he offered me a blank check, I might have done it.
Yeah.
His demands were reasonable. I think he wanted to bring the lineup card out at every home game.
Yeah.
I think he wanted
a day that was literally
holiday
for him every single week.
Yeah, it was. I thought he was being more than fair when he approached you, and I'm sure these are the most Marlins Man questions that you've ever gotten in an interview. But when he came up to you at that first town hall and said, "Do you know who I am?" Did you know who he was?
I had heard. I had heard. You see him on TV every sporting event with that orange jersey, so it's hard to miss seeing him there. But I didn't know who he was. I knew his name, and they pointed him out to me before we got started.
Yeah, just to set the record straight, he's not trying to get on TV. He's just a big baseball fan that wears his Marlins jersey in all the other parks, and he just happens to get on TV. So he's not trying to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
humble.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're all on the same page. Yeah. This is good.
We're all Marlins Man fans.
We're all. Yeah. This is a good common ground here. We all know and are close personal friends with Marlins fans here.
I got it.
Yeah. All right. So, your career is so incredible. I watched the whole documentary. I was kind of enthralled with it.
Thank you.
Like, what do you think in terms of the reception from the documentary? Did you walk away being like, I feel like that was good, I got my full story out there? Or are you still like, people don't know the full Derek Jeter because you had such a private, separate life from the public persona?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. When we first started going down this path, I wanted to film the potential Hall of Fame call that I was going to get, right? Everyone said you should film it so you have the footage. And I wanted to film it so I could share it with my girls. I had 2 girls at the time. They were both very young. They didn't know what was going on. So I wanted to film that. And then if I was to get inducted, I wanted to film the induction ceremony just so I can have it. And then that turned into a larger discussion. And I was asked, you want to do a documentary covering your entire career? And I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's just no way I would do it. And I just started thinking about it more. And I said, okay, if we're going to go down this path, I want to make sure, whether there was times in my career where there was friction here or there, I wanted everyone else to be able to voice their opinions and give their side of the story as well. So it turned into 7 episodes, man. I sat down north of 30-something hours talking about, I know you guys talk quite a bit, but you ever talk about yourself for 30-something hours, you run out of quite a bit. You run out of things to say. So we interviewed north of, I think, 90 people, and I'm very, very happy with it. I didn't want to do a puff piece. Like I said, I wanted to make sure everyone else could chime in and give them a platform as well. But I'm happy I did it, and everything that I've heard has been pretty positive for the most part.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, it's very cool to be able to look back at your career and have so many people weigh in and kind of see what it means to other people and see what it meant to yourself when you're looking back and like retroactively at it. But when you were a kid, when you were growing up, I have to imagine that, for a lot of people, their dream life would be what your life was, where, you win World Series, you're the captain of the Yankees, everybody has nothing but good things to say about you throughout your career, for the most part. And we'll get to maybe some of the detractors later. I've got some notes later we can get into. But as a kid, what was your dream? Did you fall asleep at night thinking, I want to play shortstop for the New York Yankees, I want to win World Series? And how did your life actually end up comparing to everything that you wanted it to be when you were a kid?
Yeah, that's when I was a kid. My dad played shortstop, so he was my first role model, and I wanted to be my dad. That's why I fell in love with the position. And I was born in New Jersey. My grandmother has 14 kids. My mom has 13 brothers and sisters. We used to spend every summer in New Jersey at her house, and she was the big Yankee fan. So that's what made me fall in love with the Yankees. I grew up in Michigan, but I'd go back every summer. So I always wanted to be shortstop for the New York Yankees, and there was no other dream there. And look, I was blessed. I was fortunate. I was lucky. I don't know how you want to define it, but just being drafted by the Yankees, having a chance to spend my entire career with one organization, man, you don't dream of all that. You just dream of actually getting to the major leagues and playing for the Yankees. I think every kid dreams of playing in a World Series. You don't really know what it's going to feel like to win one. And then we had a lot of success, man. I was blessed. I had a lot of great teammates. We had a lot of success, especially early on in my career. My life that's been blessed, and it's to answer your question, it's much more than I could ever dream of.
Yeah, I mean, it is really your career is a storybook career. But the one thing I appreciated in your documentary, and it's something that only the true great ones kind of have, is it does feel like the losses hurt you so much more than the wins. And that 2001 series, when they go through everything and you're talking about it, is that something, how often still to this day, Derek Jeter, family man, you're at home, you got other things going on, does it just pop in your head every now and then? You're like, fuck.
No question. Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. I got a couple friends that have won more championships, man. So don't think they don't constantly remind me of it. So you always think about, the times that you feel as though like I said in the documentary, every loser says, "Oh, we should have won." Right? That's what you say. But you have those times where you get so close and you feel as though you had a team that was capable of winning. So that you're right, man. It's. I guess I'm wired a little bit differently. I don't know if I'm necessarily proud of it, but for me, I think about those times that we could have won.
Yeah. I mean, that was so close, and there's something about the guys who are wired that way, because I think, you had such a crazy career that you could just be like, well, it was all, I mean, won 5 titles. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, one of the best of all time. But the guys who are wired different, it's like, no, we should have won.
You remember the
8.
losses?
Yeah,
more.
we should have won 9. We should have done this.
Yeah, and I just always had. I didn't appreciate my career as much as I probably should have when I was going through it. Because it's always, you heard me say in the documentary, it's always what's next, man. What's next? Like, you celebrate for a couple of weeks and then we got to get on to the next one. So, like I said, I think that's just a character flaw of mine.
Yeah.
You played a pretty pivotal role in one of the most iconic baseball moments of the last, I'd say, 100 years, and that's George W. Bush's first pitch at Game 3. So legend has it you were talking to him and you were kind of giving him some tips before the game. What was it like when he was taking warm-ups? Did you see something in his motion and you're like, hey, let's tweak this, let's tweak that? Or what was your advice to him before he stepped out there on the mound?
Yeah, as much as I'd like to take credit for the perfect strike he threw, I can't. This was the old Yankee Stadium, and the batting cages were about, I would say, maybe 100 yards from the clubhouse. So I had a routine that I did every day. I used to go down to the cages right before the game and just get a few swings in to get loose. And, I'm walking down to the cage, and the whole tunnel's lined with Secret Service. So everyone's talking about how nervous they were post 9/11 with the President of the United States in Yankee Stadium. I felt it was the safest place in the world to be because, there was nothing going to happen at Yankee Stadium that particular night. So I went down to the batting cage and I saw the president, and he said he's throwing out the first pitch and he was getting loose, and I said, hey man, just make sure you're going to throw it from the mound or you're going to throw it from in front of the mound. And he says, what do you think? I said, man, throw it from the mound. I said, yeah, I think you should do that. And then when I was leaving, I turned around and said, don't bounce it, because if you bounce it, they'll boo you. It's Yankee Stadium. And he threw a perfect strike. I don't know how he did it. Didn't realize he had a bulletproof vest on at the time. And, the funny thing is I since I retired, I haven't swung a bat. I've only thrown a ball a couple of times. It's when they retired my number in 2017. And just a few weeks ago, they had a Hall of Fame ceremony at Yankee Stadium. I threw out the first pitch, and both times I threw it out from in front of the mound. so they booed me. Actually, last time they started to boo when I was in front of the mound. So it's an intimidating experience to throw out the first pitch.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, talking about other moments, our office is in New York. We have a lot of Mets and Yankees fans, a lot of Mets fans, a lot of Derek Jeter haters. So this is not a question from me; it's a question from the Derek Jeter haters.
Yeah.
Some of the Derek Jeter haters would say that you kind of hot dogged it when you jumped into the stands and got your face bloody. Some people are even saying, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, you had a razor blade underneath the seat and you cut yourself a little.
Yeah.
Do you think you probably could have just maybe caught it and not used all those extra steps to make the theatrical jump into the stands?
Actually, it was 2 steps. And if you went to the old Yankee Stadium, unfortunately, you can't go because it's not there. But there was not a lot of foul ground behind third base. So trust me, if I could have stopped, I would have stopped. But you're running full speed, and I've said it, the catch was not hard. It really wasn't hard. It was a foul ball. You're running full speed. But I had fallen into the photographer's pit a few years prior to in the postseason, and it's all cement. So I knew where I was going, and I just thought if I jumped over the photographer's pit, I'd just land in someone's lap. And unfortunately, it was the one seat that didn't have anyone sitting in it. But no, to answer the question, I absolutely could not stop.
So you got rid of old Yankee Stadium so no one could actually go back and recreate it.
Exactly. That's what I did. Just for the Met fans, I just had them tear down the old Yankee Stadium so they couldn't go out and recreate it.
How often would you have, I mean, Yankee, being in New York, like it is crazy how passionate the two fan bases are, how much they hate each other. Would you get people on the streets being like, fuck you, Derek, from Mets fans and stuff?
Mets fans, no, because Mets fans didn't have anything to say. Really. You know what I mean? They didn't win. We played them in the World Series in 2000, and I've said that was the one series that we absolutely could not lose. I would have and I'm not joking when I say it, I would probably have moved out of the city. I lived in Manhattan my whole career. I would have moved if we would have lost to the Mets. But really, Met fans couldn't say anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good feeling.
And Red Sox fans couldn't for a while until 2004. I have to admit, I got caught up in kind of the Red Sox bandwagon in 2004. I bought the shirt. It said like the entire lineup on the back. Posada sucks, Williams sucks, and at the end, and Jeter swallows. I thought that was a really good burn on you. I was actually at Game 7 in New York for that closeout game. I've wondered, like, you seem like a guy that probably still affects when you think about kind of like that 2001 World Series. As it was happening, when did you reach the moment where you're like, oh shit, we might actually lose this series?
Man, I don't think you ever, well, first of all, thanks for bringing up all of our losses. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
I'm glad I came on
journalism.
the show, man. Thanks. But, people talk about us losing. We lost 4 games in a row to Boston, but we beat them 3 games in a row, right, to get a 3-0 lead. So it just goes to show you anything can happen in the playoffs. But even when we lost Game 6, I thought we were going to win Game 7, because if you think about it, at the time, Boston always found a way to screw it up. They just did, and we had all the confidence in the world, but they beat us pretty good there in Game 7. So I don't think you ever lose confidence, but they had a lot of confidence. I mean, down 3-0, it's tough. A lot of teams would have rolled over, but they had a really good team that year.
Mm-hmm. So I'll give you a good one because then you can talk about your wins. Let's rank your rings. Which ones are most meaningful?
Let's rank I'm sorry, say that again.
Let's rank your rings. Let's rank the 5 rings. Which one do you like, the most meaningful? Obviously, they're all special and everything, but I would imagine there's one that means a little something extra. Would it be the last one?
Ah, man. You have kids? You guys have kids?
Yeah.
How many?
2.
Yeah, it's like kind of like when someone says, who's your favorite kid? Even if you have one, you're not going to say it.
Yeah,
right?
My daughter. I like my daughter more than my son. So there we go. I answered that. So now you have to answer this.
No, you know what? I tell you what, man. Anytime you do something for the first time, it's new, and you're going through experiences. You're experiencing the parade for the first time. You're experiencing the attention. You're going down the streets. Everyone has Yankee shirts on, Yankee hats on. They're congratulating you on winning the World Series. So the first always stands out. Man, then you got the Mets. We're playing the Mets. And that, we had to win that World Series, like I said. And then, man, 2009, it'd been 9 years since we had won the World Series. So it's tough. But I'd probably say maybe the first one, just because it's the first one.
It's okay to just say that the one against the Padres was the least meaningful because they just barely put up a fight. That's fine. That's totally fine.
The one against San Diego, we knew they had no chance. I mean, we were 125 wins that year. We were 125-50, so that's tough to do. We steamrolled most teams that year.
That's a crazy record. That really is.
It is, yeah. I mean, at any point over the course of that season, did you feel like you were on autopilot where that your team is so good that there's absolutely nothing anybody can do to stop you?
Well, you know what? That's a good question because
thank you.
1998, towards the end of the year, we actually scuffled for a couple weeks. And going back to Yankee fans watching every game, I remember, we had won the division in April. I mean, we had already won. And I remember walking the streets in New York in September, and fans, yelling, we better turn it around and we better, playoffs are coming and what's going on. And they watch every single game. So we had a period where we scuffled a little bit, but I think every team's going to struggle at some point. I think that's when you find out how good you are. But for the most part, that year was, I'm a little biased, but I put that team up there against any team.
Yeah, it was an incredible team. And it is true. Baseball's so weird that, it's just so many games. So there's always going to be a stretch where, you lose a couple series in a row. In terms of leadership, were you weren't a rah-rah guy, but watching one of the cool parts of the documentary was you talking about the 90s, late 90s Yankees, and then the transition to those 2000 Yankees where you lose some veteran guys and you have to become the veteran guy. Do you think there was a moment where it clicked more for you for being a leader and bringing all that team together versus when you were the young guy and you had all the veterans around you?
Yeah, I think there's – look, I've always heard people say, oh, well, you're quiet, you're not the rah-rah guy. I didn't do things for the camera. Every player knows, I don't care what sport you play, you know which camera's on you because you just look at the red light at the top. So I think if you're waiting for the camera to be on for you to go and approach a teammate or for you to get in someone's face, you're doing it so everyone can see it. I was vocal, but I did it in my own way. I did it behind the scenes. I did it in private. There's a lot of times, guys you can yell and scream at gets the most out of them. Other guys, you got to give them a hug, and you got to take the time to get to know your teammates. So I just always tried to do it ever since I was younger. I was blessed. I came up with a lot of veterans I learned from. And then, like you say, I was there for 20 years. So teammates change, new guys come in. We had a lot of leaders on our team, which I think is one of the reasons why we were able to have so much success. But, we went through a stretch where we didn't win championships. And it just goes to show you it's tough to do. Everyone says, one thing I hate is when players say, oh, I want to go somewhere where I can win. What do you mean you want to go? There's a lot of shit in life I want too. You don't say you just because you say you want it doesn't mean you get it. You got to be willing to work at it. So, winning's tough, man. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was that guy for you? The guy that would get in your face or give you a hug that kind of brought you along and took a leadership role when you were coming up?
When I came up, man, I don't necessarily know if it was someone that was getting in my face because I was self-motivated, but Mr. Torrey, Joe Torrey, I mean he was pretty much. I played for Buck Showalter for just a few weeks in 1995, but Mr. T, I think he was probably as good as it gets. He's the best communicator I've ever known, ever been around, and he treated everyone fairly. He didn't treat everyone the same, but he treated everyone fairly. So I learned quite a bit from him.
So this might be the toughest question you ever get. It's something I'm very fascinated with. At what moment do you think you officially earned your pinstripes?
Man.
Yeah.
Playoffs. You got to do it in the playoffs, man. You got to do it in the playoffs. At least now you have to do it in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. Because, I think there's this level of expectations that come with playing for the Yankees. And it's the expectation level that we all set, because before we came up, I said a young group of us that came up, Yankees hadn't had a lot of success. They hadn't won a World Series since the 70s. And then we came up when we started having a lot of success. So now you hear a lot of times people say, oh, well, the expectation for the Yankees is World Series or bust. Well, they got a group of players that need to get to the World Series first. I said the season was a failure after we won my first year. After you win, there's nothing else you can do but to win again. So, the expectation level now is so high, and it's understandable because Yankee fans, they were spoiled, we were spoiled. But getting there and winning is tough.
So Aaron Judge, pinstripes, it seems like by that criteria, he's yet to earn them.
No, I mean, man, Aaron, but he's performed in the playoffs. He has performed in the playoffs. I think that, Yankee fans pay attention to what you do in the postseason. They can pretty much care. I remember when we had new players come to the organization, I'd say, hey, look, we have 30 games in spring training. We have 162 games in the regular season, and that's before it counts. So you're playing 190 games before anything counts. So, you talk about Aaron, he's performed in the playoffs. They're yet to win, World Series or get to a World Series, but he's performed.
Did you guys need to win in 2009 for him to earn his pinstripes?
Oh, man, I think from a perception standpoint, especially from a Yankee fan perception standpoint, I think, yeah, definitely. And I think you ask him, he'd probably tell you the same thing. I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure he'd tell you the same.
I know A-Rod pretty well. Used to do a podcast with him. How's your relationship with him now?
It's good, man. It's good. We got together recently. One, I wanted him to be a part of the documentary. I told him, I say, hey, man, say whatever you want, give your opinion. And we got together, and I said, look, I'm just, when it comes to the documentary, I'm letting you know how I felt at the time. A lot of things happen in life, right? I have a family now. You lose close friends. You get older. You realize what's most important and things that you can just put in the past. So, I wanted him to make sure that he understood that any feelings I may have had or he may have had, once again, I don't want to speak for him, but any feelings I may have had is behind me, right? So we've moved on from that.
I did respect and I love your angle of like you have your circle of trust, you have your inner circle, and if you're out, you're out. Like if you do something, you're out. I think that's how a lot of athletes get a little bit burned nowadays, is that they might make their circle a little too big, or they're not as discerning when it comes to who they trust. You were able, like, is that something you just always have had, where you're able to be like, I know this guy's in this for me, not for himself type of situation?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had trust issues. I've mentioned that in the documentary, and it's not necessarily something I say I'm proud of, right? But, I meet people a lot of times. I think I've softened a little bit as I've gotten older, but it always was, you meet someone and the first thing that goes through your mind is, what's the angle? What do they want? And I don't think, once again, it could be a character flaw, right? But I've had, pretty much for the same group of friends and people that I've trusted for years and years. My closest friends, I've known them for 20, 25 years plus. And, that's okay. But yeah, I've said it before. Maybe it is a character flaw, but I just have always had issues trusting people.
I think it's pretty realistic, though, because I'd imagine that a lot of people that you do meet do have an angle. I don't think it's all in your head. I think in the position you're in, as at one point you were probably one of the top 3 or 4 most famous athletes in the United States. Somebody's going to have something that they want from you. It's very hard to find like a brand new genuine relationship with someone. So I don't necessarily think that's a character flaw. I want to play this game with you. We do this with every guest. It's called Questions from a Third Grader. So we reached out, and Miss Joyce's third grade
these
class.
Your questions? These are your questions.
No.
No.
Grader.
I'm actually older.
You can trust us, dude.
I'm older than 8 years old.
Are real.
I might be small, but
I don't know how far you went to school. Go ahead.
Okay, so no, it's from Mrs. Joyce's third grade class in Dripping Springs, Texas. The first one is from Johnny. Johnny wants to know, Derek, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is blue.
Okay, cool. Timmy wants to know, Derek, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Shortstop of the Yankees.
Okay. And then Sarah wants to know, Derek, why didn't you switch to playing third base when your defense at shortstop had clearly started to suffer towards the end of your career?
It was never asked. I do what I'm told.
Oh.
Third grade, you do what you're told, right?
Uh-huh.
I was never asked.
That's a good answer.
So no one ever broached that subject with you. Again, Sarah wants to know.
Never brought up in my entire career. Never was I approached about switching positions.
All right, along those same lines, let's make a headline. Were you ever close to leaving as a free agent? Did you ever envision playing for any other team?
No.
And you could say literally any team, because then we can make a headline out of it. Be like, Derek Jeter dreamed about playing for the Pirates, and we'll put it on a headline. Could you just say it?
Absolutely not, man. I said it in the documentary too, and this is God's honest truth. The only time I was a free agent, I walked in and told Hal Steinbrenner, I said, I'm not going anywhere. I said, I've told my agent, if anyone calls, not assuming anyone would call, but I said, if anyone calls, don't take it, because I'm not going anywhere. I said, just treat me fairly, and that was it. So it never crossed my mind to leave, never wanted to leave. I know a lot of things became public during the negotiations, but never crossed my mind to leave the Yankees.
The other, dealing with the tabloids was probably very annoying during your career. I do have to say, though, that headline when you looked a little fat and it said Derek Eater, like, you got to admit that was funny.
Man, let me tell you something. You talk about trust, right? So after that came out, I was actually in Miami at a hotel. Afterwards, I went up to a couple friends. I'm like, man, why you guys didn't tell me? Like, did I gain weight or something? You know what I mean? But funny, we should have put it in the documentary, actually. I had met with a good friend of mine who's on one of the networks. The next day, I just ran into him at the airport, and he took a picture with me. And I actually, at the time, I had lost weight from when I played. So I don't want to get on any New York papers. I don't, because if you get on them, they will come after you. But that I did not gain weight. A lot of people thought it was funny. I didn't at the time. I was like, what's going on, man?
I just imagine them at the post just being like, Derek Eater, like, we nailed it. Boom. Yeah. This is the greatest headline of all time. I laughed out loud when I saw it.
I think they were sitting on that one for years, hoping to get a bad angle of you, and they finally got that angle. And they
might have. And at the time when it came out, like I said, I was in Miami. And I was downstairs at the hotel restaurant. I had a huge breakfast, and somebody came over, and you know how you see someone, they're sort of looking at you, and they had a paper in their hand. They're looking at me and looking at my plate, and then I saw what was on the front page.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted my last question was going to be, we have a special guest in the studio right now. Well, he's on this podcast. His name's Jake. and he met you. Jake, how old were you when you met Derek Jeter?
I believe I was 3 or 4.
3 or 4 years old. Do you remember meeting a 3 or 4-year-old named Jake?
Yeah. This was recently, right?
Yeah, there's a picture.
There's a picture.
So this is what you have to look like. It actually is a bigger question of like, do you ever have a moment and step back and you're like, there are millions of people who idolize me to such an insane level. So Jake told us the story when he was in like kindergarten or first grade. His parents went to the parent-teacher conference, and the teacher was like, he's great, everything's great, but he keeps signing his name Jake Jeter. Like, why is he doing that? And his AOL profile name was like, what was it?
It was Jake Jeter 2.
Jake Jeter 2. Like, do you realize there are literally millions of people out there like Jake who they would die for you. You are everything to them.
You know what? Well, first of all, Jake, nice to meet you or see you again.
See you again, yeah.
Even though I can't see you. But, I don't think you ever, at least me, I never sat down and say, oh, people idolize you. I just, that doesn't cross my mind. I look at it as I grew up with Yankee fans, man, for 20 years. I mean, great thing about Yankee fans, they watch every single game. They live and die with what happens on the field. So they've seen me grow up, and I joked about it when they retired my number. I seen a lot of you guys grow up as well. So I don't think it's ever a situation where you say, oh, people idolize you. I just think it's you grew up with them.
Yeah, no, he idolizes you
For sure.
Like, that's a very humble way, but like
He would die for you. Honestly.
yeah, there's many people who would die for
I dressed up as you for Halloween for like 10 straight years. I'll be honest.
That's pretty
It was
good.
just the pinstripes every year.
Just roll it back to play the classics, play the hits. All right, well, I have one last question as well. It's a rowback question. RHOBACK.com. Use promo code TAKE for 20% off your first purchase. You get the new joggers. Your retirement and the fact that you didn't get unanimous Hall of Fame, which I want to try to figure out who that person is. But did you, part of your retirement, I'm sure, was age, but was it also like, hey, they're starting to use exit velocity a lot on these stats, and like I got to get the fuck out of here because all my hits are like 20 miles an hour. Did that play into anything with your retirement?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wouldn't say all of them are 20 miles an hour. I think you need to go take a look at some of them because there are a few that are a little bit more than 20 miles an hour. But I tell you what, though, yeah, man, I mean, look, if you go back to the age of analytics began towards the end of my career. And, man, you can go through the Hall of Fame and just think of how many players, because of launch angle and exit velocity, probably would have never had a long career. I mean, you could I'm just thinking out loud, Wade Boggs,
Tony Gwynn.
You know what I mean? But the job was to get a hit and get on base. And so the age of analytics probably played a part of me leaving. But I also said, when it starts to feel like a job, that I should go home. And I got hurt. I broke my ankle. I had a really good year in 2012. And then I broke my ankle in the playoffs, came back too soon, broke it again. And the rehab and to just get on the field, it just became so difficult. It really felt like I had a job, man. And anything that you do, if you're passionate about it and you love it, it doesn't feel like a job. You have fun doing it. And at that particular point, it was just too much for me. And look, don't get it twisted. I know they probably wanted me to go home too, right? So they could move on and get someone else in there to play. But for me, I felt like it became more and more of a job.
Yeah. And you became Derek Jeter.
Exactly. Yeah.
And in that moment when you were retiring and the camera cut to the crowd and we see your nephew tip the respect hat at you, that to me proves that clutch gene is hereditary, because you obviously were maybe the clutchest player in Major League Baseball history, and then your nephew, the camera happens to be on him and executes the most perfect, the cutest cap tip to you of all time.
And it's funny, he's 11 years old now, so that just goes to show you how time flies. But afterwards you hear people say, "Oh, it was rehearsed." No, it wasn't rehearsed. Even my last game, I heard people say, there are some people that said, "Oh, David Robertson was supposed to come in and give up 2 home runs, and this is just how they planned it all." It's like, yeah, we all sat down and planned it out.
Yeah.
It was like Nathan for You episode.
It's
or the
it's a
rehearsal.
testament to your career that it's ended the way it did, and it was a storybook from start to finish. But we appreciate this so much. We'd love to have you on again whenever you're free. Want to talk baseball? Check out Greatness Wins. You can buy new athletic apparel there. You're going to send us a gift basket?
Yeah. So, yeah. I'm gonna send you some stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna send
Nice.
I get nervous with the gift basket comment. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, what do you mean?
Oh, what are you talking about?
No, nothing.
Not
We'll
familiar.
talk about it next time. Next time I come, we'll be in person.
Oh, great.
Yeah, all right.
Get
So
a chance to see Jake.
yeah, I was gonna say I want you to come in person because it'd be great to do like a long interview in person. But we'll also have to maybe have you come like in the middle of the night because some of the dudes in the office would like. You actually have people who want to fight you in this office and people who would be like, please marry me, Derek Jeter. So it would run the gamut.
Oh, that's pretty good. But we'll get it. I'll get you guys some product.
Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thanks
it.
so much.
I appreciate it, guys. Take care now.